Hi, my name is Slightly Simple, and welcome to part two of the developer commentary for A Date with Monica. I'm joined by Agent Gold.
Hello again.
Hi. And last time in part one, we did the first five endings. So if you haven't seen part one, then go and watch part one. In this part, we're going to do the second five. So first of all, we're going to have some tuna fish. Funny, the way the buttons are laid out with no context, this just looks like you're having actual tuna fish instead of the sandwich. Uh, Tuna was her favorite, apparently.
we're just gonna assume that she's a fish-eating vegetarian then.
It makes sense. We're by the sea. We're by the bridge. We can we can go fishing for MCs of old. Oh my goodness, that is brutal. Ah, tuna fish, the chicken of the sea. I love Mark's narrator voice in the original version of these scenes. It's absolutely wonderful. Yes, this. The scene is pretty hilarious in the original, but I couldn't recreate all the wacky stuff that happens. So unfortunately, you're just gonna look at this, light. This.
I forgot about this.
I love this. This is basically how it was in the original, except that Mark was kissing the tuna in the original. So it's even, but this just works so well.
I mean, this gives new meaning to the phrase "I could just eat you up."
Oh my goodness. Sure does, doesn't it? 2019. In the original, because the original came out on Valentine's Day 2017, so obviously this was changed from 2017 to 2019, because this came out 2 years after the original.
And yet some things never change.
I guess. Or do they? Also this. I made this edit specifically to be the world's most pathetic dab.
I just say this, I've actually seen some high-effort dab edits for all four characters.
I've seen one for Monica, but the dab specifically had to be pathetic. Because in the original, Mark was like doing a very pathetic dab like this. This edit is something I actually shared on the subreddit before releasing the mod, and people loved it.
I think I see what you did, yeah.
Yeah, I just took the hand, the selfie, and stuck it on there. So it's, and this is actually
good.
This is actually really accurate to the pose that Mark was doing in the original. And when I posted this on Reddit, people just loved it. It's one of my most upvoted posts now. So, yeah, that's Tuna Triumph.
It's, I mean, I'll take that over the peanut butter incident, I guess.
Yeah, I like the little facial expressions, like here Monica's doing a little frown.
Just kind of reflects how the note that ending left off on.
It kind of does. Yeah.
Oh boy.
Oh yeah, this sequence. This is probably the longest sequence in the mod without any dialogue. And that was another one. This was the other sequence where I played a lot with the sounds. And I just went wild with it. Well, there's a lot of choices after which Monica says good idea, and this is one where she says maybe not, I don't know. So it kind of becomes a running gag throughout. Like the bonjour. Oh yeah, this is supposed to be like an alien aircraft beam lifting her up. But I didn't know how to do that, so I just went with this.
I mean, this is definitely creepy what's going on here.
Yeah. It's kind of... I'm pretty sure what happened in the original was you, Mark, got taken up and you got probed or something. I'm not even 100% sure what it is myself, but this is kind of it.
It's like it leaves a lot to the imagination, but it doesn't leave you without some suggestions for imagination.
Oh my goodness.
Like she
Yeah.
just falls out of the sky.
That's what happens with the original. Like in the original, you can hear Mark's bones breaking on impact and everything.
Oh gosh.
Cough. Oh my goodness. I love this. Okay, this might be one of my favorite things. FBI Yuri. I love this.
Was this one of your edits or someone else's?
This was one that I made. I'm sure other people have made FBI edits of the characters before, but this was something I myself made.
Oh man, this might be the first one I've ever seen. So.
Yeah, I don't know. I know people have done Yuri with glasses and sunglasses and stuff. Because I've even seen that stuff in the post tool.
Yeah, that was my buddy who made those, King Crabmaster.
Yeah, I just drew glasses on her. And so in the original, this is when Tyler and Ethan would come up to you and Mark as FBI agents, and they'd put like some sort of acne mask or something on you, and make like a camera flash. I really regret not putting any camera flash noise here, because that was in the original. There's a couple spots I feel like I could have tidied up a bit.
It just ends with that.
Yeah, like Monika's holding the shiny. Oh my goodness. Oh, this. Okay, let's see where we are now. We go back to the car and back to this cute little edit. Alright, donut tap. And we're back with Best Girl. That was a joke, by the way. Where is here? Why is he? Oh gosh, I love this. I know this came out in like February of 2017, but that totally sounds like that thing in Infinity War where they're like, "Where is Gamora? Why is Gamora?" That reminds me of it. Like looking back on it now,
makes you wonder who inspired who.
Come on, you're the main ingredient. I love how this ending, or this sort of path, route, whatever, is just full of implications that Butsuki wants to cook and eat you.
It would be so horrible if it wasn't so silly.
It really would. Oh yeah, this. So this little prison model thing was something I created in Blender.
Aha!
And pretty much all the prison backgrounds are just Blender screenshots or Blender renders or whatever.
You know,
this is pretty basic. I can do a lot better than this in Blender, but, you know.
I had a feeling that was what I was looking at with these backgrounds, and I wanted to ask about that at some point.
Yeah, these backgrounds were just quick little models I made in Blender. I'm very used to it. I could actually do a lot better than this if I took the time to, but I didn't really need that for this mod. It's just kind of a silly, funny thing, so
sure.
Really no use putting that much effort in the original assets.
We'll save it for the actual mod where they go to prison or something.
Oh my gosh. Donkey Donkey Prison Club. Just bailing. You know, I didn't mention this before, but I love how Butsuki somehow has a uniform that fits her perfectly, and yet Sayori can't even button up her blazer. It's like, really? This little moment is kind of funny to me. You just take a screenshot out of this out of context and you wonder, like, what?
Yeah, that would get some heads turning.
the only appropriate reaction.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love this line so much. Because there's so much that could have been avoided. Even if you
Oh,
did pay, there's so much that could have been avoided if she'd only known.
yeah. I mean, like, in the midst of all of this, though, I can't help wondering what kind of a restaurant did we eat at? What did we order off of a menu where the chef is willing to cook the deadbeats?
Oh my goodness. I love every time the chef says deadbeats in the original.
Mm-hmm.
It's so beautifully done. Alright. I don't know how. This is like some MacGyver crap that's going on here.
Oh my goodness,
Like
MacGyver.
MacGyver, yes. It's like in the original, that's pretty much what Mark did. He put in a rose, a rock, and then a piece of paper or something into a
I
with handcuffs, and he just somehow makes a phone out of all that.
Yeah, I had no idea what to expect to come out of that. I could not think of anything that you could logically put together with it. When Monika does it, I can kind of understand getting a result like this, maybe, but even then, it's just so over the top.
It is. It really is. This whole
Oh,
series is over the top, and I love it.
yes.
It's basically what Markiplier is just craziness. This concrete doesn't seem too thick, unlike my thighs. Uh, if if any line in here was original, I totally would have written that. It would fit with the tone of the mod, in my opinion.
I think so.
Yeah. Or we could try to pick that lock. Irony is there's no lock there. This prison door isn't even secured at all.
Well, that would make things easier.
I mean, yeah. Also, what does this even mean?
I mean, odds are if your school has a digging team, you probably don't have that many other schools to compete with.
Yeah, it's a is it even a thing? Championship digger in high school? Funny thing is, this is the only mention of high school in the mod, and it's so ludicrous. Alright. So now we're gonna do my playtester's favorite ending, which is the dig.
It certainly has my favorite ending name.
Oh yeah. So in the original, apparently Mark was using the spoon as a hairpin, so when he pulls it out, his hair just gets 2 times longer.
Oh gosh.
Uh, and then we have this. By the way, these numbers, they don't appear in the normal mod, but because I'm using developer mode,
I
the
get
numbers
you.
are. The original game did the same thing at Yuri's death scene, if you had developer mode on, which I think
Sure,
Dan did in his stream.
I think I have seen that, and I didn't like ever try it out myself. So I'm curious, how many does this go?
800, which is more than half of the Yuri death scene. Not quite the Yuri death scene. I think the Yuri death scene is like 1440.
1440, yes.
Now, there's something I think a lot of people will miss here. If you check the history, there's a little message here. I had a feeling that at least one person would check the history to see how many times Monika Keeps Digging showed up, but instead you just have this.
I like that. I certainly didn't see it.
Yeah, I had to tell my
Someone
playtester to check
probably
history
did.
when they got this, but I mean, again, Yuri's Death Scene did the same thing, but with the description of the game.
Right?
Yeah. So this is gonna go on for a while. How was your day?
My day's been fine. I've spent the entire day with one Doki related thing or another.
Yeah, that's me too. It's pretty much my life, unless just
Like
Pro Tag
every
doesn't
time
count because they're all OCs.
every time I finish one thing, something else comes out of the woodwork that needs my attention.
Yeah. I think the funny thing is, I know other mods have introduced like OCs in them, like Take Two and the New Literature Club, but I
Mhm.
think Just Pro Tag is the first one where it's only OCs.
I think so, and it's
Save
like
for,
it's a situation where you can get away from it because we all recognize the character sprites and everything.
yeah, like we know they're obviously all variations of MC. And there is also Michael. I don't really try to hide the fact that Michael's kind of the original MC. I hint at
Sure.
it in the game, obviously, with things he mentions, but I use that to my advantage very heavily. It's kind of an interesting perspective, because in Just Pro Tag, the girls aren't like characters that you interact with. They're just sort of people you hear about, and all you have to go off is Michael's ramblings. 'Cause he's the only
I
one
know
left that was there.
I know that it's like this is one that I promised a while ago that I would look at, but I am really excited to look at it when I get like a decent chunk of time that I can devote to it. It's just I have so many things that I do.
Yeah. When the full mod comes out, I don't know if Spaghetto or any other YouTubers are going to do this, but I would want people to play all the routes, because there are a few like extremely major events, like DDLC level major events that are route specific that I have planned out for Just Pro
So
Tag.
it's like you have to see them all to get the full picture of what's going on.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to include any like special content if you do that, but it's just kind of like there's a lot of stuff that goes on.
Well, that sounds cool to me.
Yeah.
At any rate.
So now that we're done talking about my actual magnum opus, here's the big dig. You can barely see it there because it's kind of covered by shiny Monika's hair, but
Yep.
there's a little spoon there. She's holding a spoon instead of a pen.
Something tells me that Timeline's Monica is still going.
Yeah, some say Monika keeps digging to this day. You know what I found funny? When Markiplier played through DDLC, he saves constantly. Like, you think he almost filled up all 9 pages with saves both times.
That sounds about right. And that just makes it especially funny when you hit a certain point in the game. It's like your saves are gone.
Yeah, especially when he saved in the middle of Yuri's death scene, which is a part where you can't even load saves. So it's like, what's the point? And of course, through doing that, he discovered that loading saves skips days.
Oh yeah, that sounds very vaguely familiar.
Yeah. And of course, this is relevant because this is based off of something that Mark did. Uh,
Speaking of things being relevant, by the way, I find it hilarious that like they impossibly made the cell phone and then they can't do anything useful with it.
I love that. Hang on a second. Sorry about that. Where were we?
Um, um, we picked the lock with no help from a cell phone.
Yes. A lot of good that cell phone did. You can make a cell phone out of like a rock and some paper and some handcuffs, but you can't use it.
We found the one situation where having a skill that ridiculous is useless.
uh, could you imagine if that actually showed up on MacGyver? Where he did something that should be physically impossible by the laws of reality, and it's completely useless.
I'm tucking that into the back of my mind to bring back in some project later in some way or another.
Okay. This. I feel like this joke is more effective in the original because the shoes actually squeaked when you put them on.
Gosh.
But here they just don't do that, so it's pretty much just a visual throwaway gag.
Sure. I mean, there's a difference between sneaking shoes and squeaking shoes.
Yep. There's I don't think she grasped that one. They didn't teach that in escape prison like MacGyver school. Also,
just how to make phones out of nothing.
I just realized these walls in the background, like if you look at the right area, these two look like the same wall. Because the lighting is so weird because everything's the same color, so they just kind of blend into each other.
Yeah, I kind of see what you're saying. Like, I look at this and I think I see what I'm supposed to see where it's two separate ones, but it does look, if you look at it just right, it's like they're connected to each other.
Yeah, the lighting's kind of weird. Sometimes 3D lighting can get that simplistic. I feel like if there was no gap in this door, then it just looked like one solid wall. Not even a door.
Yeah.
It's just there for decoration. Kind of funny. Before I implemented the prison backgrounds, before I made them, I was using the club room as placeholder backgrounds. And of course, here she brings up the door. Normally there'd be like chopping sounds and whatever the chef does.
Sure.
You'd hear behind that door, but there's no sound at all because this is a visual novel and Ren'Py doesn't do a lot of sound.
Yeah, I mean, like, you could throw sounds into some of these spots, like the squeaks and the chops and whatnot, but then again, you already focus so much effort on the sound in other places that it's like...
Yeah, especially since I was pretty much only limited by the sounds of the original game. Technically, I could add more sounds if I wanted to, but, well, I didn't want to. Simply put. So yeah, this is just basically a stream of dialogue at this point. This little interaction is kind of funny to me.
It's like, we may be in a terrible, terrible situation, but I'm still trying to salvage the date.
Admittedly, if you went on a date with someone and they got you thrown into prison waiting to be cannibalized by a chef that is way too muscular, you probably would want to break up. Realistically, you would want to break up. So I think that's why she has to reassure the me, is not even MC in this mod, it's just a mannequin, as we learn later.
I hate to think that this might be one of the higher updates on this girl's list.
Oh my goodness. What else happened to her? Did she get captured by, like, the CIA? Last time. Oh, well, I guess it's better than having to shoot her twin sister.
Not by much.
Only by a thread. Well, this date is... Well, yeah, we're in prison. This date is going wonderfully. I'm gonna save here.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Let's get the quickest ending in the mod, I think. Like, after you pick Split Up, there's, like, a very... Like, those are the only 3 lines of dialogue after you push that button.
That moment was one of several in this mod where it's like there's no dialogue, there's nothing happening, and I just wonder to myself if I got stuck.
Oh yeah. I don't think there's any point where you can get stuck.
No.
Originally, when I originally made the the first ending, the meta ending, right after the player you closed your eyes, that pause was originally going to be forever and you had to click to continue. But since that's not really a thing in DDLC and DDLC mods, I figured the player wouldn't get that, so I just took it out and made it like a 5-second pause instead.
Sure.
So, I don't know. That ending was pretty quick, so if you want to say anything about it or ask anything about it, feel free.
I think there was a conversation we had where you were explaining to me a little bit about what happened originally.
Yeah, obviously this is a video for everyone, so this isn't just us talking anymore, so I'll have to explain that. In the original, Mark went off, did his own thing, and then you turned around and you turned back around and suddenly Mark was just crumpled on the ground, still with his Crocs on, and it played the GTA Wasted thing.
I mean, this... the one that we get here, it's so ridiculous. You get that same sense of, I don't know what just happened.
It makes sense. Obviously, you have the Dead Yori stinger here,
Of course.
so it kind of ties back. It's a very sudden scene, so it kind of ties back to Dead Yori.
Mm-hmm.
But in Dead Yori, the suspense was built like for all of day 5. There was no music. You had Monika saying haunting things. You had "Get out of my head, get out of my head, get out of my head, get out of my bread." And then you go to her house, and they build it up so much, and there's a lot of fake outs where you think it's going to show the thing, if you're expecting it.
Like, even the day before, they actually set you up by making you think you're about talking to her. She's fine that day, not so much the next day.
Yeah, but there's so many times where they make you think that you're about to see it, and then when you finally do see it, it just hits you like a brick wall. And it's either going to be terrifying, heartbreaking, or both.
Yep.
Or neither if you're a total sadist like me. But the point is, all that suspense and build-up makes it truly terrifying. Plus the fact that it's a total tone shift for the game. It went from romance to horror like immediately. But here...
I was going to say, once you're past the initial shock of it, if you look back at that moment, the animation is handled like a champ to really deliver the impact of the moment too.
Yeah, it's a really wonderfully well-crafted scene. So props to Dan for that.
Absolutely.
But here you don't have any suspense and build-up, and there's no like big special effects, so it's just kind of funny.
I thought so. It's like you're surprised for just a second, but you can't help but laugh at the horrible scene in front of you.
It's like, oh wait, what? But then it's just so sudden that it's just kind of hilarious. Especially since it's a Monika variation on the Yuri dead scene.
Right.
And it's kind of funny.
She's been a little bit of everyone today.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how like Monika has, or there's community created Monika variations of every other death. Like someone made Monika hanging, someone made Monika neck snap, someone made Monika stabbed to death. So it's kind of funny. Monika could die in any way that any of the others died. And that would be an anti-Monikan's dream.
I halfway hate to say this, but it's funny enough at the same time. The first time I saw the Monika hanging sprite, suddenly I understood how every Sayori fan in the world felt.
I guess you're a Monika fan then?
Yeah, she's my first place. Not to the point of being crazy, but she's the one I like the most.
Yeah. I will say, when I saw that Monika sprite, I was like, wow. This is really well done. This is a great artist. They're great at imitating the style of the original game.
Oh, it was really impressive.
Yeah. So, now that we're done talking about Monika getting the news for her crimes, let's stay together.
Yes, I think I've seen enough death for one day.
All right. The scene. I love this scene, especially in the original. It works so well. Gold, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still there.
Alright, you've just gone silent.
Sorry.
You've been shushed by the mighty buff.
Well, what would you say if you saw this? I mean, what do you say in this situation?
I don't know. By the way, in the original, the chef was holding like this big, you know those like big soup spoons that you use to get soup and whatever out of pots and onto bowls?
Sure.
I don't know what that's called, but originally the chef had one of those, and he was using it as a melee weapon to hit you. And that's sort of what I tried to recreate with what's upcoming.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. That's you getting hit by a giant spoon.
When I came across this moment, I legitimately wondered if I was supposed to be doing something, or if it was just scripted.
I mean, the prompt makes you think you're supposed to do something. And then prompt did exist in the original, and when I saw it in the original, I tried to, like, click the screen. Because I know YouTube videos can have annotations, so I thought that was an annotation and something would happen if I clicked the X.
So basically, you managed to take the confusion that you had originally and convey it to me through an entirely different setup here.
Basically. And because this one actually stays on screen, I feel like people are going to actually try to press X here.
I was tempted to.
Yeah. In the original, this is where Mark would come in with a controller and he would press X. I think it was an Xbox controller or whatever.
Sure.
I can't remember exactly, but he would come in and he would press X on the controller, and that would cause the notification to go green. So just pretend that Monika did that.
Seems fair. It just takes one success.
I love how it just explodes. Chef just explodes for whatever reason. Magic X button is magic.
There's an idea that just kind of floats around in the back of my mind. Might surface someday. Wherein I need to make sure that a character never does anything where strength would get them out of a situation, because they're like secretly a Super Saiyan or something.
That would be hilarious.
It's one of those things that's just like, this might come up one day.
I feel like that would work if you could somehow turn Natsuki into Buffsuki, which I know you've done that before in the little Buffsuki video you made when you first added her to the pose duel.
Yup.
Imagine putting that in like a more realistic situation.
Oh, I don't think about doing that sort of a thing.
Yeah. For some reason, I don't know why I made this music take forever to fade out, but it just does.
Well, I think that was one that... Well, yeah, I was going to say I think that's one that was not made to loop originally, but I don't think that's hard to change.
For some reason, it seems like pretty much none of the MBS tracks were made to loop. I actually downloaded the OGGs and put them in this, but a lot of them I had to modify by combining them with themselves and combining them with the track releases to make them loop more properly.
Yeah, like a lot of them in the code for the Monika Before story itself, they're just set to loop to 0. So just play all the way through and go back. And then the ones that are for the poem recitations, those ones aren't made to loop to begin with. And some of those are 15-minute tracks. It's like, that's crazy.
Yeah, I think all the date ones are like absurdly long. Like way longer than they are in the soundtrack. And that was a pain to save those in Audacity. Like some of those were an absolute pain because they were just so absurdly long.
Maybe you can help me out with that, because right now I just have the raw 15-minute files in my projects and they take up 20 megabytes.
Oh my gosh, no. No, that's not good. That's not good. I think all the file names of the songs in the A Date with Monika files use the same names as the songs do on the soundtrack. I tried to associate the file names of the songs with the songs on the soundtrack, so you should be able to easily find what you're looking for if my memory serves me right. And then you can also look into code to see where it loops, because I did change some of the loop points to some of them.
I'm going to take a look at that sometime when we're done here.
All right. So now we're at this. You'll notice how there's only an exit button here.
Mm-hmm.
In the original, when you got to this part, the exit button was the only thing that showed up. But if you waited like maybe 30 seconds, then the more button would show up.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, because it's YouTube. I couldn't really think of a good way to do that. I tried to do the thing they did in Act 2 after Yuri and Natsuki's round 2 fight, where it showed the buttons and also the dialogue. But it just wasn't working right for me.
Sure. Well, I do think that the solution you came up with here, I think it's a clever one, because it's certainly... I found the ending, obviously, so it left me wondering just enough, what if I do this?
Yeah. I think it also works because it kind of forces you to see this little segment. It's a very short segment, but because you have to click on this to find the more button, it basically forces you to see this to see the big final true ending, which we'll get to pretty soon here, actually. I love this. How you see Dark Monika for like a second. Now, here's another thing I do with the history. There's only 2 moments that I mess with the history in this mod, and this is one of them.
Aha.
So yeah, it actually rewinds.
Okay, cool. So I'm so confused about a couple of things like here. First off, I don't understand how we got back to this point. And second, I don't understand how that line is the one we came back to.
This is the perfect line to come back to, admittedly. And this is this is pretty much exactly what happened in the original. You would go back to that line in the original. And yeah, you would see Dark Mark in the original Darkblier in the... So...
Do we want to dig our way out? Last chance to change.
Yeah, I'm just going to skip through all this because it's the exact same.
Yep.
This is so funny when you skip through it because it's like you get really... And then suddenly there's a more button.
In
this song. Taking its sweet time. Hello? Also, something you might notice if you look at both the prison backgrounds carefully, there's no visible light sources in the prison. There's just this ambient light that comes from nowhere.
Well, I just assume that they're on the ceiling where we can't see them, and to be honest, I'm not sure if I'm seeing the ceiling or just a gray skybox either.
It's a pretty low ceiling, but it is a ceiling.
Okay.
Yeah, it probably would look a lot like that if there was no ceiling, because that is fairly close to the default skybox color in Blender. So yeah, this is kind of funny. This is one of the very few choices where Monika's actually doubtful of you. She's not immediately like, good idea.
Yeah. Not even like, good idea, maybe. I don't know. Just immediately just, okay.
Okay. You have to wonder what it's building up to.
I certainly did. And
like, it gets so dark and horrifying, and then it's suddenly the friendliest thing in the world.
I, by this point, was left in a state where it's like my brain has stopped functioning. I have many questions, but I am not going to be able to ask them.
Well, you can now.
You know what? I think I'll just let you explain what might be happening here.
So, in the original, this was the floating head of Wilford Workstash.
Okay.
So, you would see the dark, creepy lights and big, horror, scary build-up, but then Wilford Workstash's floating head would pop out at you and say these lines. I'd also like to point out, there isn't really a deeper reason I used Michelle from Just Protag here. I just kind of ran out of characters, and she was available.
I think it kind of fits that it's like we have a nice friendly face here, and it's like, have you ever had someone explain something to you which answered your question but also made you more confused? And this whole ending is kind of like that for me.
Yeah. I think this line in the original was a reference to Wilfred Warfstache doing interviews. Because there was a thing where Warfstache interviewed Markiplier,
I see.
and
Casual tie-in to the Ask Me Anything that Hallie is doing for the Take-Two crew.
yeah. Even though Michelle never appears on that, because I am not Hallie.
I'm sure it works out in the end somewhere.
Yeah. I think Hallie's almost done with that. He's just doing the club thing, then the follow-up thing.
Yep.
Oh, wait, I just thought of a tie-in. Hallie made the AMA thing, and then Spaghetto played the Sayori part of that, and in that, he gave me a shout-out and gave Just Protag a shout-out.
I'll take it. We'll call that full circle.
That's the connection. Speaking of which, I don't know when Spaghetto's gonna play Just Protag. He keeps building up to it on Discord.
Well, what? There's a trick that I think I know how to do and just have not found a reason to do yet.
Well, there's your reason. Big head spin. This head really moved around and span around a lot in the original.
Sure.
But here it's just kind of bobbing slowly. In the original, it was like going around the entire screen making loops.
I feel like I can imagine this.
This. Love her little disappearance there. She just whisks away off screen.
Yep.
Here. This is another background taken from Exit Music.
Sure.
I just needed something with a mirror.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
add this. Oh goodness. What if I used the black mirror?
Oh dear.
As in Michael's cracked phone at the end of the game.
Oh dear.
Oh dear. Oh dear. This is the ultimate reveal. We were playing as Faceless Chad the whole time.
The fact that that's called True Ending is just the most bizarre thing.
Before we move on, I do want to explain something. So, if you know Mark, you know he has a dog named Chica?
Yes.
In the original, when you looked into the mirror, Chica was looking back at you.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
So, in other words, Mark was dating his own dog the entire time.
The dog who was smart enough to pay for a meal and shoot maybe Darkiplier.
There was also an Inception stinger.
Gosh.
Alright. Now that we got that little tidbit out of the way, and I've just called Faceless Chad a dog, let's move on. Ah, yes, this scene. This scene skipping is always going to be disabled because you can only see it once.
Sure.
And this was obviously not in the original Date with Markiplier because it wasn't a game. I added this in because I wanted a reward for those who found all 10 endings. And I also feel like it's very in character for Monika.
Yeah, I think that's really clever. It's like that's another thing that I'm tucking in the back of my mind. Like if you got something like this where it's like lots of endings but they're quick to get to, throw in something for 100% completion. It's a nice thing to do.
Yeah, DTLC also had a little thing for 100% completion, but, this is a little bit bigger than that because the mod's a little bit shorter. And I also think it's very in character for Monika, because in the original, she didn't have a route.
That's
and that was pretty much the cause of all conflict. And this is a mod centered around her, with a bunch of different endings, but it's all her route.
Yeah,
basically.
Yeah, it's the most bizarre route she could possibly ask for, but it is still indeed a Monika route.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely something. So, I was originally going to sort of call out recorders and streamers somewhere in the scene like the original game did in Act 3. But for some reason, the code I was using to do that kept giving me errors. And that was no good, so I just kind of took it out.
I can't actually even test those sorts of things myself because I'm a Mac user, and the code just it doesn't account for looking for recording software on Mac Windows only.
Because I know people who record, like Orber, for example, are naturally going to try to get all 10 endings for YouTube. So I just figured throwing in something for them would be like, haha, you cheeky little, you're just doing this because you have to. But I didn't get to do that, unfortunately. Yeah. I like how she remarks on just the ludicrousy of it all.
It's gotta seem just as weird to her as it does to us.
It's kind of funny because in the actual sequence, nothing really seems to faze her. She just kind of accepts these things as things that can happen.
I guess that depends on how much stock you put into the meta ending.
Yeah, in the meta ending. I don't think even the meta ending is canon, because it kind of reveals it as all being like this big film set and project. Monika being the most agitated, irritable person ever.
That line blew me away. Just like, despite what some parts put me through, I still enjoyed it. You ended up dead twice.
Oh yeah. I added that line specifically because this mod absolutely torments her in parts. So I added that line as a little quirky remark like, yeah, it's okay, I died. I almost got eaten, got abducted by aliens, but that's okay. Actually, I'm pretty sure she died 3 times.
Oh gosh.
Once when you shot her, once when the peanut butter, and once in the prison.
Right. I forgot about the peanut butter.
Forget about the peanut butter. This
is cute.
This is another thing I posted on subreddit before the mod was out, and I just people love this too. People really love that edit, and I think I can see why.
It's nice. It is.
So this is pretty much the credit sequence from the original game. There's not much to say about this technically, except that the credit sequence is a nightmare to edit, because there's no organization in that at all.
So, when we did the Doki Rewind at the end of last year, it was my job to set up the credits sequence and make sure that everybody who contributed got mentioned in it.
Speaking of which,
I'd
like to give a formal apology for providing such a low-res version of my logo for that. It looked like crap in the credits of Doki Rewind.
I didn't even think to ask about another because I was just so it felt like the pressure was on to make sure that I could get that done in time, and it's like, oh boy, what do we call that guy, by the way? Is that Fish Wallace or?
He's Tuna Boy in the game files. That's Tuna_BOI.
Oh.
So Tuna Boy is his name.
Got it.
Although Fish Wallace is a good close second. I was really tempted to put the line Monika keeps digging in that screenshot, but I didn't want any of them to have the text box. Oh, there's a little Chipka.
Maybe it could be graffitied on the prison wall or something.
Oh my gosh. Players fight. I didn't want to say Chad Sprite because they never call him Chad in this, so.
Yeah,
there's the best part.
That blew me away when I saw it the first time.
Of all the things in this mod, that blew you away.
I mean, it's not the only thing that did, but
I'm sorry this got cut off, by the way. Yes.
I wondered to myself, wait, did I see that image the first time?
Which image?
The last one in the credits sequence.
Oh yeah.
There,
the Monika Day
I was like, wait, that doesn't look familiar.
It wasn't. It was meant to be more of a thumbnail for the mod than an actual, thing in the mod.
Yeah.
This is just my. These are my warm regards to whoever else is playing this, not me. So I'm gonna skip it.
Sure.
And then here's where
there you go.
there's where the date CG is actually supposed to show up on the main menu. And I'm gonna mute this because I hate this song. Seriously, the music in DDLC is kind of annoying to me personally.
There may be situations where like I started something to test it and I didn't mute it first, and my brother was in the room and he asked me, how many times can you turn on and hear that song and still be okay with it? The answer is yeah, I like to change the title theme when I can't because I'm just so used to that song.
Actually, in my normal mod template, the same one that gives me these button sounds, I changed the song to a song that was cut from the Stanley Parable. Well, I don't know if it was cut. It might have just been something that the music maker made on the side.
Sure.
I think it was called Pondering Stanley or something. I can't remember exactly. But I just changed the music so that it was less annoying and more, like a little more whimsical.
Sure.
So that's pretty much every ending in the game. I think I covered everything I wanted to cover.
I believe we saw everything I saw when I went through it, so I'm certainly not going to think of anything if I haven't said it already.
Yeah, so I hope I got to everything. I tried to cover my, development process and thought process behind quite a bit of the stuff, because there's definitely quite a lot of coding in this. There's not a lot to the writing and some of the basic character interactions, but there's definitely a lot of coding.
Yeah, I don't remember if I said this before, but it's like the deeper you actually get into writing code for these kind of mods and the more you understand how to do different special effects and stuff, the more impressive this becomes.
I think it kind of helped that not only was the script short, it was already kind of written for me since this is based off a date with Markiplier. So that means I didn't really have to think about the writing so much, and I could put more effort into the effects and the edits and pretty much everything else to sort of counterbalance
I'm actually working on a project with a couple others like that, where it's like they did all the writing and I just have to help them bring it to life. And it's like, it can be easier to do it that way, where it's just like, I just need to make things fit and I need to get the right energy, but I don't have to worry about the story being told because it's already there.
To be honest, if I were a game developer in general, that would probably be my dream job. Just the programming side of things.
A little bit less so for me because I really do enjoy writing. I like both aspects of the projects, just not both at the same time.
Writing is fun. Writing can be fun and writing can be exciting, and I definitely enjoy writing very much too. But if it's a choice between writing and programming, I'm always going to pick programming.
That makes sense.
Personally. Because that's definitely something I enjoy personally. And I'm not going to pick art. Because I can do edits. Like I've done Arms for Chad twice because the first set sucked. Which in and of itself sucks because that's still in the Just Protect demo. I might re-release the demo with the stuff I've done since its release. Because, I made new sets of arms for Chad, but all in all, I can't really do art from scratch.
Yeah, it's kind of, I want to say it's kind of similar for me. I have picked up a tablet and drawn things before. I am not a professional by any means, and I can do some edits. Lately, I've been kind of surprising myself, which it's like, this edit actually looks pretty good. I don't think anyone's going to notice the things that are wrong with it.
Yeah, I have a drawing tablet too, myself. I use it sometimes for some of the edits when it comes to shading and stuff. But when it comes to art, I have befriended at least 2 artists, and sometimes I ask them for stuff like this. This was made by Cheeto Thou. Their name showed up in the credits. And they also did some of the CGs for Salvation, like the one where Sayori's on her bed with a laptop, and also I think the one where Yuri was laying against a wall and crying. They did those, and possibly some other stuff. Salvation doesn't really tell you who did what. Sometimes you can tell by the art styles, but...
Sure.
Yeah. They also do a lot of art, just in general, for Twitter and DeviantArt and Reddit. And they're a pretty good person.
Well, that's cool stuff.
So, Yeah. And I've definitely said this before, but they're also doing the CGs for just Protag. You might notice the art style. It's not an exact copy of the one from DDLC, but I think it fits well enough that it doesn't really
It looks
matter.
nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it looks really nice. But yeah, honestly, if you had worked on this with me directly, like actually putting code and stuff, do you think you could have done a better job than me?
Oh gosh. I think the most that I would have done that you didn't would be adding some of those sound effects that we talked about.
Yeah,
Because, like I say, the psychedelic dark applier, dark harmonica, what do we want to call that? Those moments, you totally blow me away with what you did there. For me to even come up with that, let alone recreate it, would be insane to do. So we're talking just like minor things here and there that I might do differently. I don't think I could outdo you with this.
well, that's interesting to know. Uh,
And there was a stray thought I was going to throw out. You've pointed out there were a couple of things that like I introduced and then you figured out what to do with them and everything like that. And
yeah,
when I see people like take the things that I figure out and they just go crazy with their imagination and they create something fantastic that I never would have come up with, that is a fantastic feeling.
I,
So
I guess that's why we
this
have a
mod,
modding community in the first place. That is pretty much the heart and soul of modding communities for not only DDLC but games in general. Is you take something and you kind of build on it and make something even better and more spectacular.
yeah,
For
and like
example,
this,
Black Mesa is a Half-Life 2 mod. At least it kind of started as a Half-Life 2 mod. There was just some fans of the
mhm,
game pretty disappointed with how Half-Life Source came out. It was just a carbon copy of Half-Life itself with more bugs. So they
okay.
took Half-Life 2 and just made it something completely different. And not only did they recreate the first Half-Life with incredible detail, they also made several improvements to the engine. And those improvements are still coming to this day. Like they haven't
That's
stopped
pretty
working
cool.
on it. And it just kind of goes to show the power of a modding community and what they can do when they come together and build off of each other.
Yeah, like it could well be similar for DDLC because it's like this game hit me in a spot that a few games have before, and it's like my passion for those never goes away. My passion for this game is not going to go away anytime soon, and I'm going to keep digging and trying to find new things that we can do with this engine and new ways that we can bend this game. And I
It's
just want to see people take that and do more things like this wild bit of imagination that, like I said, I would never come up with this on my own, but someone else is able to now.
I do think it's kind of interesting that you mention building on the engine itself. I know A Date with Monica is like 50% tech demo,
Mm-hmm.
but DDLC itself feels like it had everything in the kitchen sink thrown into it when it comes to the effects in Act 2.
Well,
Like, there's a lot that Dan did with that. And a lot of the more minor things go pretty unnoticed because everyone focuses on the characters and the lines. Like,
sure, like,
Yuri using a pen as a dildo and using a
oh
poem as a
god.
tampon. When you have big, remarkable moments like that, you kind of undermine the smaller things. Like a very small scare in like the first day of Act Two, where the screen inverts for like less than half a second, even. But that little effect took quite a bit of coding in and of itself because you have to take the screen and then invert it and then show that as little.
Yeah, like when I've gone through some of the Renpai documentation, I think to myself that Dan must have looked through this, figured out what features there were, and for everyone he saw that he could figure out, try to come up with some kind of a special effect for it. For instance, you can put things on different layers. Well, what can we do with that? Well, why don't we take the master layer and slowly tilt it to an angle and then put Monica on the front layer where she shows up over the top of the text box? It's like, how do you come up with that except for, hey, this feature exists? What can I do with it?
Yeah, it's. I think like the whole idea of Act Two is just the game is falling apart. So Dan
Yeah,
basically just went wild with that, and I absolutely have to commend him for it because it's like
absolutely.
you're
Yeah.
basically just finding a bunch of excuses to do a bunch of effects.
Yeah, it's like after getting through the game the first time when I look back at Act 2 is a laugh riot nowadays. And like the first time around, it does manage to be scary and everything because of what you just went through before you got there, and now it feels like everything's wrong, everything's falling apart. But once you have your bearings and you've got the whole game in perspective, it's almost like a parody of horror all by itself. It's just weird how it kind of transitions like that depending on how much you know.
It almost is kind of like a parody of horror because you have some pretty cliche horror elements in there. Like if Natsuki doesn't like your poem on day one, her eyes might pop out.
And I finally saw that because of someone else's video clip, and it's like it happens so quickly you might think you imagined it.
Yeah, and there's only a small chance of it happening too, even if you meet the right criteria beforehand.
Yeah, it's like 1 in 3 for that one.
And there's also like Natsuki's little middle circle off the blind side. Every time I read that line, I have to do it in an accent because that's just how I imagine it, with the effects that are on Natsuki's face at that point. It's definitely funny to think about just how much you can do with the visuals alone.
Yeah, it's like I keep looking for ways to push the boundaries and do something new with it. Like people have figured out different things, like just casually animating the characters, like having them blink or having them do lip flaps while they're speaking. And it's like I see how to do this. I can't combine that with my pose tool right now, but I know how they do that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think in newer versions of Red Pie that when DDLC was made with the pose tool would be completely obsolete because
It
Renpai has a feature that basically does what the pose tool does.
and that's like both good to know and slightly disheartening at the same time. But
Well, I mean, if you could just take the Renpai code and plug it into DDLC and upgrade its engine for a mod,
I
then
mean,
maybe it would come in handy, but I don't think you can do that. That's probably against the IP guidelines, even though it's not a complete fresh install
well,
of DDLC.
actually, I've been looking into it, and what you just described, that is basically how I am trying to do the dual dialogue boxes. Because it's all
By
just
modifying the Renpai folder?
not by modifying the RenPy folder per se, but like you can put files in your mod project which override things that are in the RenPy folder. So the engine is still the same, but you bring the upgraded code from the new version of the engine and you put it in your own project and you say, override this, replace it with that. And suddenly your mod has not just changed the game, but has changed the engine and is still it's still relying on the base files. So it's still within guidelines in that respect.
I think that's a very interesting way to go about it. The thing that confuses me about the double text dialogue box is I think there's a moment or two in Katawa Shoujo where they did that, two characters speaking at once, and that game came out in 2012. So
Yeah,
I'm not sure how they accomplished it.
and then we look and it turns out they did what you did.
Wait, really?
No, I'm joking. I'm saying it would be silly if that happened.
It would be. It would be kind of.
I've never played that one myself, so I wouldn't. If I ever do and I see that, I'll check the history and see if it looks like one person speaking or two.
Yeah, I'm not sure how they handle the chat history when it comes to two people speaking. In that regard, I probably should have done something with the chat history so it would have like it says what left said and right said, but I just forgot to mess with the history honestly until I got to the prison scenes. So
yeah, you can do some silly things with the history if you know what you're doing and if you know what you want out of it. Like
yeah, that's very true, and I think that's true for pretty much any part of this game. But that said, I think I've covered just about everything I want to with the date with Monika.
There's a lot that went into this. For as short as the playtime that actually is, it's good quality stuff. There's just so much that goes into making something like this.
Yeah,
There's
and
a lot to appreciate.
I'm pretty proud of it. I know some people might not like the fact that I basically stole a script and made it into a mod, but I'm personally pretty proud of this little project, and I'm glad I could
Well,
get
I
it out for
mean,
Valentine's Day.
yeah, it like as far as taking something existing and making a mod around it, that's actually what exit music is, and
Oh
that
yeah,
got a
because the
lot of
Radiohead
attention back when
song.
it was new. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. We hope that you choke. I just, whenever I hear that line, you know what I think of.
I have a
Uh,
pretty good idea.
uh, well, anyways, that's about it for this developer commentary. Thank you for watching. If you actually stuck around for the whole, 2 hours in total that these two parts are going to make up. And thank you once again, Agent Gold, for joining me on this.
Thanks for having me along. This was a blast.
Yeah. Well, anyways, I probably won't see you again, at least on YouTube, because I'm not a YouTuber, but hey, I'm on Reddit and Discord sometimes, so I think I'm just going to wrap it up there. Bye.
See you later.